What is up, guys, and welcome to the Nexus podcast. I am here today for a special player profile of Troy Yamaguchi. He did extremely well this weekend at Gencon, and he is here today to chat about his deck and his experience. So how you doing, Troy?
All right, thanks for having me.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. As a fellow... I'm a Han enthusiast myself, so really loving to see your deck do so well and the deck you built with your friends, which we'll get into soon. But first, let's get a couple of questions about you as a player. So getting straight in there. So how long have you been playing TCGs, and like kind of what attracted you into Star Wars through your journey of playing games?
Yeah, so like in terms of competitive TCGs in general, I'm a bit of a newer player. I started like after coronavirus, or maybe during, I guess, just because we had so much downtime. I was so bored just sitting in my house all day. So I was like, okay, let's just find something that we can kind of grind out. So I started with Yu-Gi-Oh! I was like totally terrible, of course. No one's very good when they first start.
Oh yeah, of
So my
course.
memory of being just like really awful at card games is very, very fresh. Just no idea what the rules were, no idea what I was doing, but through my local community, I was able to like kind of get some semblance of competence and work my way up in the Yu-Gi-Oh sphere. So got somewhat decent of that. We hopped over to Battle Spirit Saga at some point, which is actually how I know you guys and
Oh
a
yeah.
bunch of my Star Wars friends. Battle Spirit Saga was like a very competitive game. It was very cash focused, so it was like exactly like
It, it,
randoms and like top players.
it
Like there
still
was no
it
in
still
between.
does exist, Troy.
Sure, sure. I
Let's
won't speak of it in the past tense.
for the people. I mean, actually, a
Hmm.
majority of the people that watch this channel actually are here for Battle Spirits at the moment because Star Wars is relatively new here.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
yeah, no, like you say, it was a very competitive
Hmm.
landscape because there was a lot of money involved. But yeah, how did you
Exactly.
enjoy playing Battle Spirits compared to
It was good. I
Yu-Gi-Oh?
didn't have a ton of time to play it. It was like every time an event would come around, something like heinous would happen in my personal life. So I just have no time to test. I would just have to like whatever my friends were playing. I would just be like, dude, I need to steal your homework. Like, can I copy your homework? They
Yeah,
just
yeah.
hand me the list, and like I'd be reading my cards the day of the event. But it was fun enough to like get some sort of reps in that way.
Yeah, I mean, do you think
Good game.
you were able to still compete due to maybe how much you worked on your Yu-Gi-Oh game from
Yeah, definitely. I
being an
mean,
early player to
so here's the thing, right? And this is kind of pivoting to what I enjoy about Star Wars. There are multiple types of games, right? Some are mechanics based, some are decision tree based. I felt like Battle Spirits, there were definitely mechanics in there, such as the flash window and is some
love
sort
the
of
Flash
instant
window. Yeah.
timing. But like in terms of like really crazy mechanical plays you could do, there were only like three or four. It was like taking your cores off a guy to play around the Duke, or some sort of flash or like simultaneous effect timing. There weren't too many crazy mechanics,
Yeah, like
especially as compared to Yu-Gi-Oh, which is like a very mechanical game.
yeah.
Star Wars is a very decision tree based game. I feel there aren't very many like mechanics you need to keep track of. You don't need to worry too much about like interactions or crazy combos or anything like that. So you can really focus on just making decisions. So I liked that step from Yu-Gi-Oh to Battle Spirits, and then Battle Spirits to Star Wars is like kind of like another level of like, okay, this is very much a decision based game. There's tons of little like you're like, oh my gosh, like resourcing this card 5 turns ago is what screwed me over,
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
stuff
it's
like that.
you
It's
can
really great.
you can lose this game on turn one.
Hmm. Like,
I've
oh, I kept the
preached about
wrong
this a
two
lot.
drop.
Yeah,
Hmm.
exactly. And it's like, oh, well, you ECL'd on turn one. Wow. Okay.
Exactly. I started the wrong arena.
Yeah. But yeah.
Stuff like that.
So no, awesome. So I mean, we've had a fairly similar path, honestly. I mean,
Yeah.
I was playing, I played TCGs when I was younger, but
Hmm.
I got into competitive around coronavirus time with actually Dragon Ball
Mm.
Masters, and then
That was the first one before Fusion World, or
yeah, exactly, yeah.
okay.
And then I moved into Battle Spirits when that came out, and
Mhm.
Star Wars. I actually played the original one of the original Star Wars card games back 25 years ago. So I
Mhm.
was instantly into it as soon as I played it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so how's your experience been so far with Star Wars? Like, I know obviously you've done very well this weekend, but like, when you start first picked up the game? Were you instantly just like, this is great, or?
Well, so there's like several things that are very special about Star Wars. I think the first one is its limited experience is really good. This is the first game I've played that has had a limited experience, and definitely one that was like as strong as this one was. So like, yeah, as you say, from the very first tournament, where you just get your little pre-release packs from set one, you're like, oh, there's like actual gameplay here. It's not just like build, quote unquote meta deck and like go to town on the competitive front. You can really just throw like 6 packs of bulk together against your friends with also 6 packs of bulk and have like an actual game with decisions and
Yeah. So do you enjoy the
complex board states.
just to interject? Do you enjoy the sealed
Yeah,
format with
I
this
actually
game?
do. I think
Yeah, I
some of the
do as
best
well.
games I've had,
I do as
have
well.
been
I
in
love it.
limited.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. And like you get so much more mileage out of cards you would never think to put in your deck. Like, I don't know, like the trooper pump from set one. I forget what it's called. A precision fire.
yeah,
Like that card's gas and limited, and like Mercenary Company is a card that's great and limited, and it's like even like kind of good in set one constructed. So like, yeah, I always love just like getting hella mileage out of like these really dinky cards that you would never think to play.
yeah. No,
You like
absolutely.
never see them again.
I mean, that's. I mean, I saw a few of the spoilers here and there,
Hmm.
which I do appreciate. But I did playing the pre-release. That's where I learned a lot of the cards and a lot of the interactions for the new set.
Yeah.
And yeah, I loved it so much.
Mhm.
I couldn't stop going to the pre-releases. To be fair, on the set too. But yeah. So how about for like competitive? Did you only play at Gen Con so far, or have you played some other tournaments?
I mean, in terms of tournaments, the circuit has been fairly limited, right? You've only had store champs. Excuse me.
A few
So yeah, I've played
1Ks
in a
here and
couple of
there.
store champs. Yeah. But in the area, we haven't had. I live in SoCal, so we've only had like a few
Okay.
bigger cat tournaments, which is like drive all the way to San Diego to play in like a tournament for a laptop or something, right? It's like, well, I don't know
Yeah.
if I really want to do that. So I'm really excited that like really big organized play is spinning up. I'm going to be going out to all sorts of planetary qualifiers. That'll be really fun. Um,
What
I just enjoy
are
the
we're
competition.
going to be able to get you over to Europe, maybe, Troy?
It's a distinct possibility. That'd be
I
pretty
mean,
far, but
I
I'll give it a
mean,
shot.
yeah. I mean, there's cash tournaments
Yeah.
brewing in the
Hmm.
UK and stuff. So
Yeah, I
yeah,
hear that UK tournament's really big.
we've had some Americans over for Battle Spirits. So
Yeah,
maybe you can all make the trip again. It would be awesome
we'll
to.
see. We'll see.
I mean,
Yeah, definitely open to it.
we always like to show our American brothers a good time. So definitely
Hmm.
think about it. But yeah, so no, great little history there. It's cool to see you ascending to winning tournaments so
Yeah,
soon. There's players that have played card games all their life and they can't get there. So
yeah. Well,
obviously
I
a
think that's a
natural
big
talent
thing.
for it.
Well, not natural talent. It's like I, I was very bad for a very long time, and I don't really know when the switch flipped, but like there's a certain moment where you're like, okay, like I'm starting to understand like what it is that makes a good player. And I think the biggest thing for me was meeting some very other good players. I would like
Absolutely,
play
yeah.
against them with like my weird little brew deck that I thought was just like so broken because like I beat all my friends with it or like I stomped locals with it, and then like I take my little I made this myself type deck against them with their like oh, this is the best deck in the format type deck. And I'm just like, wow, I cannot beat them. Like this guy never misplays. And like, I
Yeah.
have like, Exodia on my board, but there's some way they just like eke out a winning game state or like they drag you into a game that they had no way of, being in the first place. You're like, oh, like this is what it's like to play against a really good player with a really good deck.
Literally the
And like that,
story of my life, man.
yeah,
Playing against strong players. It's a good thing though,
exactly.
definitely keeping you
Hmm.
on your toes. Sometimes you'll play tournaments and it'll be like, wow, this is pretty easy. They are not as good as my friends that pound
Yeah,
me
exactly.
in
So
practice.
like that was like a big step for me. I think that's what really helped me like become decent at card games, was just getting a good group around me, better players and like, okay, this is what it's like to be a great player. This is
It,
the level
it
of
obviously takes a lot of
consistency you have to have.
dedication as well, right?
Yeah,
You
exactly.
you must have put the hours in that time.
Hmm.
So, and I can definitely attest to how long it takes. But yeah, let's go into your deck now. Let's have a look at
Sure.
that. Sorry if I disappear on your screen. We'll see. So yeah. Can you see the screen now, or
I still see your feed.
no problem?
It hasn't switched over. Maybe you have to stream it.
Yeah. Let me just figure this out for you. All right. So yeah, this is the deck list.
Okay, there you go. Perfect. Oh, there's me. I see myself.
Yeah, exactly. You're kind of in like a force mode, like you know
That's
how Qui-Gon
too
on that
funny.
is, because yeah, I've only got your voice.
I like
really.
it. I like it.
Yeah. So Yellow Han, right? So this is my favorite deck. I'm very biased about how good this deck is, and 6 weeks ago or so, we all made a prediction of what would be the best deck in the format. I said it would be Yellow Han, and you have cemented my bragging rights for guessing the right deck. So really pleased about that. I've been brewing it myself. I do have. It's kind of looks like your build, but there is quite a lot of fundamental differences between them. But yeah, let's get into it a bit. So why did you guys fall on this? You said I've watched your deck profile, which will be in the pinned comments, guys. You'll be able to see that. He goes fully in depth into the whole deck and everything else. We're gonna do a bit of a dive in now, but that's where to go. That's your own channel, right? As well that it was on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So go check that out. But yeah, so why double Yellow Han? What was your reasoning for jumping in on it?
Well, so in terms of the archetype, and then I explained like pretty much my entire thought process in the deck list. So I don't want to repeat myself too much, but like Cunning decks are just incredibly powerful just because Cunning is number one, like a broken card, but like the whole archetype has everything you need. It has aggression, it has interaction, it has just like card quality in terms of the stats, you know? So it's a pretty good like all-arounder type deck. I don't feel like there's any auto-lose matchups. There are definitely some that are less favored. Like you kind of don't like the villain ramp ECL decks. Like anything from like Akira to even like a Bosk or like those colors can be kind of problematic.
I hate those decks, honestly.
Yeah, because like you're a tempo deck, right? But then if they ramp out and then they get to their leader turn before you do, your tempo kind of hits a wall. So like that's a bad matchup for sure, I would say. But like those decks aren't very popular at least, and then like everything else is totally winnable. So I thought that Cunning decks in general had a pretty good matchup against the field. It was what I was definitely leaning to. I mean, there was a number of decks I considered playing for this event. I was considering playing Kira, but I felt that deck was like, it's like very fair.
ECL Kira,
and gets run over. Yeah. I mean, I didn't even consider the 30 HP version just because like ECL is such a blowout card.
It's crazy.
Makes your flip turn so crazy, right? But
100%.
Yeah, I just felt like that deck is incredibly fair, and it gets run over by aggro like way too frequently for my liking. It's like not an unwinnable matchup by any means, but like I don't know. I always like kind of fear aggro. It's just a deck that I feel
when
like
you say aggro, you just mean Sabine or?
Oh yeah, definitely Sabine. That's the one for sure. Yeah, and like even though Kylo turned out to be like a pretty decent deck,
Cunning Kylo is pretty fun.
Oh, that thing destroyed me. That deck was awesome.
By any chance, was it like a space version?
No, it wasn't space. It was space. They just played Jeddah City, and like their whole game plan was to Jeddah City or low drop, swing over it, and then like play out 2 guys every turn. So like you can never get any sort of tempo advantage.
Never catch up.
Because Han is a deck that never has initiative, like I just got destroyed. Like, it wasn't even close. It was horrible.
Yeah, no. I honestly, like when I've been testing and playing at locals with double Yellow, Kylo Ren Yellow was the worst deck because I was bouncing things back to their hand, and then they're just like, okay, well I'll play 2 Fins.
Play out their whole hand again.
It's like, what can I even do about that? But yeah, so that was your only loss in the whole weekend, right?
Yeah. Every other thing, I mean, there were a number of games that were close. There was like a couple games that came down to like, okay, do I have Surprise Strike or do you have Surprise Strike sort of thing?
And
the coin toss happened to land on my side. But even those games, I felt like I could have played a little bit better to not be in the situations. Like this deck gives you all the tools you need.
Do you find in Star Wars in general that like a lot of the games, when you're playing against great players, it does often come down to the wire? Because that's what I've been seeing a lot. Like, one action wins in best of 3s and stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
Like,
there's always that tension.
Yeah.
There's always that sort of tension, but like you always have to play to get yourself in that situation. I think that's where a lot of games fall through, where like someone will just make a really egregious misplay and like get blown out by something random.
I think that's it's really one of the the things about the game that's really awesome, because
Yeah.
you don't give up so early like with some games, unless you're playing Sabine and you lose your A-wing turn one, then it's just
Yeah, that always feels pretty awful.
depressing. Yeah.
Mhm.
So we'll do a quick one if you don't mind, like doing quick fire strategy. So what would be
Sure.
your ideal strategy playing against Sabine? Like turn 1 to 4 kind of thing.
Well, I mean, like you said, ideal is that they play out an A-wing in front of my Falcon and just get farmed.
Bang,
But,
yeah.
you know, they're not supposed to do that. But like,
but
the
people
general
do
principle
that.
stands.
People do
Yeah,
get greedy. It's true.
they really do, or they're just like not aware for some reason that Falcon just ends them. But I mean, the general principle is the same either way, right? You put in a guy that swings over their low drop.
Yeah.
It's pretty difficult for them to prevent that from happening. Like they can fleet it into your base, but like that's not the end of the world. They can wing leader it, and then it gets waylaid, right? So like your ability to interrupt their early turns are pretty it's pretty good.
For
And
sure.
then because you ramped out a guy that immediately threatens their low drop, you can do something on the next turn. Like you can ramp out a Gamorrean guards. That's like pretty strong.
Yeah,
Just gives them another thing to deal with. If they ever ECL their K2 over your Gamorrean guards, you're really happy. I mean, you're not happy, but like you trade it off the K2 immediately, and then you can't get ECL PO'd on your leaders. So like,
yeah,
it's a very good chance they're just dying.
You definitely want ECL to go off as early as possible.
Absolutely.
One
so like,
one card I wanted to talk about was Ezra.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so in set 1, Ezra was like my go. I topped a tournament, one of the biggest tournaments over here, and he was like my favorite. And then in my testing for set 2, he just wasn't cutting it because of the 4 health. How was he for you in the tournament? Was he?
I mean, he was fine. I was like an Ezra hater. I was like, why are we playing this like essentially a 3-4 vanilla? But the filtering is very relevant, especially in this deck, because you are a little bit more aggressive. Like I was trying to play him in like Green Han back when, where it's like your deck doesn't do as much.
Yeah, I mean, I was using him in the last set mainly as a way to just keep hand size up, because obviously that's a problem against like Boba and stuff. But I just
like sometimes you hit something crazy.
I think
it goes off. But like he's okay.
I felt like Smuggle made him a bit redundant. That was all. And because he's a 3-4, he's not so great. But I mean, how did he perform? Did he survive well in the tournaments and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, he was. There was never a time where I thought to myself like, "Oh, him having 4 HP as opposed to 5 is a problem." This card is not something that ends up on your board past your flip turn very often. Like he's just like a 1-drop basically.
Yeah.
Every time after that, I just I bin him. I just resource him. Like he's not very useful. You'd much rather have Bodhi every single time. You'd much rather even have like a DJ every single time or a tech.
Yeah,
so he's just like something to get you out of the early game. He was fine. I just don't know what I would play in that spot.
Yeah,
like I would maybe consider Crafties, just because Crafty is a sticky dude.
Yeah,
and like one of the better things in the Cunning mirrors. But like I don't think 6 Crafties is the way to go. I would play like maybe 1 or 2.
Yeah,
this could be Rogue Op. This could be Rogue Operative. That card's really good.
Yeah, that's like really great.
A fake 4/4.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rogue Op's a great card. I would consider him in this spot for sure.
So you definitely think it might be a flex spot potentially if you were to.
I mean, he was like good. I think the filtering matters because this is a deck where your card quality is high, but like some cards are better than others for sure. Like I don't know, Leia isn't like a super exciting card, whereas Cunning, you're jumping with joy every time you see that card. So
I feel like you have to have Leia in Han though. It's so thematic. Like it's do you know what I mean?
Of course.
What a card as well. But yeah, so okay, cool. So that's kind of what I wanted to know about that card. So as far as little strategies go, so what about Boba? How is Boba? Because I noticed in your video you said that Boba should be a hard matchup.
It really is. Yeah, it's
Are we generalizing with green Boba and double yellow, or just double yellow?
No, I was just saying yellow Boba in general, because the green build, I didn't see it all weekend, even though, I mean, the green build's probably even better against this deck, because it has ramp, and then you just have to deal with ECL things, and like Battalion's a really big pain in the butt. I think the mono Boba matchup it's really fun. Like the double Cunning matchups are always fun. Both sides have a lot of play. And you always have to try to you want to stick a buff on your guy, but you don't want it to get interacted with. So there's always that game of chicken.
For sure.
I do think it's not a favored matchup. Weirdly enough, it seems weird to opt into this deck when you kind of believe that Boba Fett is the best deck in the format. I don't think it's a favored matchup, but most Boba players, they don't really know how to play it. They just get too occupied trading board, and then eventually you stick a tech, and then your late game is better than theirs because you have Big Han, he just clears ground. The only card you're really afraid of after that is Fire Spray, because as you can see in the list, I don't have like a great answer for it outside of
Yeah.
just straight taking it out of their hand. Um, but I do think that like once players get comfortable in that matchup, that's actually unfavored because they have more ways to interact with your Han turn than you do to interact with their Boba turn. And then like the just general principle of these cunning decks is like when you're removing the board as you're building your own, it becomes very difficult to keep pace. And I think Boba Fett is a little bit better at that, which allows them to be, it kind of stops your aggression. So you lose the part of your deck that's better than theirs. And then the only thing you have left is like this weird late game tech strategy, but that is so down tempo, you'll probably just die.
Yeah.
Eventually they'll stick a fire spray and your game will end. But
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I said, most mobile players don't know like how to get you to that like 20 damage threshold. They just get preoccupied with swinging over your board and like the game goes too long and something weird happens.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well that's good to know. So yeah, it's interesting. So you played Boba Yellow in set one, right? If I'm not mistaken.
I played a little bit. I played all sorts of decks that one. I played Sabine, I played Boba Yellow. I ended up on Krennic because I thought it had the best matchup into those two decks. I played a little bit of like the Vigilance Boba Fett. I played Boba Green at the start because that deck was awesome. Like set one was cool. There was just like so many different decks you could play that were all really good. Like even like Green Han. Green Han was awesome. It felt like
Green
kind
Han
of a
was my
gimmick
favorite.
deck, but that deck was super fun.
That's
so, like,
that's what I
never get
topped
away
with,
from playing it.
incidentally.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, it was really fun.
Ewing is just such a broken
exactly.
card. I want to resolve Ewing as much as possible.
Ewing was nuts. It was really fun.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, so what about Kira? So the boogeyman right now is blue, green, Imperial decks, in my opinion. How do you challenge that?
Well, so like that's one of the big reasons to pick this deck over Boba Fett. I think this deck has better tools into the kind of like blue-green villain decks, especially the ECL version. Just because like Falcon is a crazy card, you really just hit him for so much with it. Like that card will deal like 12 to 15 damage by himself if not answered. And you can think of it this way, right? You ramp out Falcon turn 0, they play something that like doesn't interact with Falcon, you hit them with it. Okay, pass turn. Next turn, their only out to the card is either sticking the Space Sentinel in front of it and then it just dies, or they power it. If they power it, they've used all of their resources to just get rid of your dude that you already got in with 3/4, and then they're not ramping. So like it feels bad to lose your Falcon, obviously, but like it already did its job. It got a card out of their hand, it did some damage, and now you're free to play, right? You don't have to worry about them ramping out a Gideon on you or something. This card just like changes that matchup so heavily. Their deck is like so bad in space. At least the way that it's built currently.
So would you say this was one of your MVPs in the blue?
Oh, absolutely. This card's broken.
Yeah,
this card,
sure.
I was counting.
I mean, I agree.
Card,
I love this card so much. It's half the reason
I played against
I play
a boss deck. I literally hit them for 21 damage with just Falcon. It was ridiculous. Like, what could they do? Like, are they going to put a bounty on it? No.
You keep
like,
buffing it with Cunning and Surprise Strike. Honestly, and all that, all
like,
the good
it's just
stuff.
impossible to interact with. It's so big.
Yeah, that's brilliant. So yeah, cool. So what about Tech? Because Tech is a fantastic card, and for me, it's one of my favorite cards in the set, if not my favorite, just for the amount of play lines it adds up. What are your favorite sort of moments with this card? Like, because it's so versatile. Obviously, DJ is the main one, but there's so much more to the package.
Yeah, there are pretty much like 3 uses for this card, right? So if you're going to play it as a 3-drop, the only reason to do that would be to go for like a 4-resource DJ play, right? You put a card from your hand down and then try to DJ them early. That play is cool, but I don't know. You lose a lot of card advantage because you're not getting to smuggle the tech. It's like if you know that there's nothing on the other side that interacts with your 2/5 dude, or if you just want to put them on Gotta Have It. Like there's a couple of reasons to do that. So that's like play number 1. Play number 2 is obviously more typical. You smuggle this on 4 and then you try to DJ them on 5. That one gets interacted with a lot harder by a lot more cards though, so it's a little more vulnerable, but you get more card economy out of it. And then like kind of the final reason this card ends up on your board is in late game situations. So when you're just out of cards and you're, I don't know, going back and forth with them, you got them to some amount of damage and they've outed your board, but they don't have any resources up. So you just stick this out there and then you stick another guy, and they either have to answer your tech or they have to answer your beater, right? So usually they opt to answer your tech. So you already got some amount of value.
2/5 is really nice though.
He's sticky, right?
That stat is awesome.
Yeah. So like
As soon as I saw this card, I was like, this card is broken. There is a lot of
it's like
potential
almost
here.
on rate stats, right? It's just missing 1 point in attack, and that has just like incredible text, and it comes out of your resources. Like this card is crazy.
Yeah, another new card actually, which you only have a 2 of, is Kira. So I really love this card in testing. It's such a nuisance. What do you think of this card?
Honestly, it was situational, but every time I played it, it went nuts. Well, I can't. That's not true. There were some times where I looked at their hand and there was just like nothing crazy up there. You can actually just call like whatever you feel like. So like there was times where I looked at a Palpatine hand.
Did you find later in the game that it had less use? Because I find if you play it ahead of curve, like on turn 2, that's when it was most useful for me in testing.
Yeah, it was weird. So there's a lot of times I use her to like try to keep my Han turn safe, develop a body, make sure that they can't do anything. It comes online with great timing too, right? Because it's usually their leader turn. So I hostaged a lot of ambushers with her. I hostaged like OB quite frequently with her. You can hostage Fire Spray with her. Like she
Overwhelming Barrage, yeah, that's a huge hit.
Yeah. She has her moments for sure. She's a little situational though. I don't know if I would play 3. I think Gamwell Guards in general, just because like it makes her aggro matchup so much better, is a better card. But like she's definitely good. There were many times where I was like, this card's not really going to do anything for me, but she's a strong card for sure.
Nice. Okay, so the final one that you said it at the start. The main reason to play the deck, Cunning, the card Cunning. Tell me about this card. Like, did it win you most of your games over the weekend? I mean, it's such a great tempo card to play on turn 4 or 3.
This card, it's God card. Every single effect is good. Like, that's not something you find on the other modal spells. Usually, like, they have, like, 1 good effect, and you're kind of settling for the others. In the case of Vigilance, it has, like, 2 good effects, and you're pretty happy. And, like, sometimes the mill is a win condition, so that card's pretty good. But this one, like, every single effect on here is relevant. Like, the worst one is the hand loop. But there are many times where you get into this weird long game where, like, they will have, and especially the green villain decks where they have to resource for a very long time, you will get them to be like 1 card in hand after their resource, right? So as first action, you just slam this, you take the card out of their hand, you buff a dude that they can't hit, right? And it's just so winning. I did that to the 30 HP Krennic opponent like 2 times. It was ridiculous. Like, this card is insane. Actual God card in this deck.
Yeah, I love it. It's I discovered it by it being played on me, and I was like, this is not fair. Like, this is outrageous. Like, how is this in the game already, kind of thing?
No, this thing's crazy.
I just, as soon as I saw that and I saw some of the new cards coming in with this set, I was like, I'm going to make double Yellow Han. I love the Cantina Bouncer as well. What a card! We don't really need to talk about the usual suspects, guys. I was going to say, if you want to know about the thoughts on all the other cards, please go check out in the pinned comments. You can see the full profile there on Troy's page. So we're pretty much there. So quick little rundown conclusion. What would you say is... he'll also talk about the sideboard in the video as well. But yeah, quick conclusion. What would you say is the biggest weakness of the deck that people need to, if they want to get this, they need to work on?
Yeah, so if you're playing against this deck, there's obviously, you have to be really heads up about the DJ Tech thing. You just have to hold answers for it, because when it resolves, the game ends. But when it doesn't resolve, I don't know, they kind of put a lot into that combo. The only weird part, right, is if you interrupt their tech on 5, they can still try to DJ you. So then you need to have an answer for tech, and then you also have to have an answer for their leader, which is kind of a lot to demand. Or you have to make the board in your favor so that even if they DJ you, you kind of don't care. There were a couple of times where like I could have DJ'd for 7, but then my board would have been like Han leader with some damage on him, and then DJ solo, which isn't like good enough to win. Like, it doesn't matter if I put them a resource behind if I can't win the game after that. So like interacting with DJ Tech is really important. Knowing like what they're ramping out against you is important, right? So again, if we talked about this earlier, if you're playing aggro, like, you don't probably want to start space, because if they start Falcon, your game ends, and like you're just so far behind after that.
Absolutely.
Committing mana last is very important against Cunning decks in general, just because like Cunning is typically a punish. You don't want to activate Cunning and buff your dude into all of their resources up, because that just means you're probably just going to lose your dude. you know. And if they're doing anything with Cunning other than putting a +4 on their guy, you're like kind of willing to take that. Again, unless you're playing aggro, and you know if they tap your whole board and bounce your K2, you're pretty upset. But in any other mid-range matchup, like you just try to save punishes. That's like a big thing against these types of decks. And then preparing for the Han turn. If they lose their board, the deck runs out of steam after the flip turn. You're kind of hoping that you can ride out the momentum that you have. The deck does kind of run out of steam after 5 or 6 minutes.
It doesn't have the strong top end that a lot of the green decks and blue decks have. So yeah, it definitely does.
You're kind of just relying on playing like above average, like mid-rangey cards like the Cantina Bouncer, Lackeys, and Gamora.
I guess this deck does have quite a high skill ceiling as well. So it's kind of like the better you play, the more you're rewarded.
Yeah,
for it, essentially.
It's a lot of decisions to make. You do have a lot of options available to you at any time.
Okay, so if you were to make any quick changes to the deck, what would they be? Like, I'll quickly give you a little idea of what I would add. You probably thought about this card for sure, but I would definitely think about a new adventure, just because it's really great. You can, it's got a lot of different application, and especially in this deck with Bodhi Rook, Leia, Kira, Cantina Bouncer, you have a bunch of cards that you can replay and use their when played effect for 2. Very strong. And the other reason I would like that card is I noticed on your video it's actually different to the sideboard here. You have Bamboozle.
But the list that got uploaded was incorrect. It's 2 Bamboozle, 1 Confiscate.
Yeah, which is slightly different there. But go check out the video. Another plug. New Adventure actually I feel like is a better version of Bamboozle because you can use it on your opponents. I know you can't use it on anything above 6, but you can use it on your opponent's stuff, bounce all of the tokens off, and rest it. So it's basically a similar sort of card, but it's more versatile with especially this kind of deck. But yeah, if you had any changes, what would you make? I'll stop waffling.
Well, directly in response to a new adventure, that's definitely a card I've considered. I dislike the card in general just because I don't like cards that don't do anything on their own, like that need a specific other card to make them good. But in this deck, there are some really cool plays you can do with it. You're right that it does act as like a fake Bamboozle type effect. But the only reason Bamboozle was in here was to interact with leaders. Like any other application was mostly fringe. I just wanted to tap Han and Boba Fett. And like being able to go -1 for that was pretty relevant just to have all your resources up. The coolest part about a new adventure is actually using it offensively. It really blows out like the green steel cards, for example. Like you can, if they go Palp, take your guy, you can bounce it to your hand and replay it for free. Like that's really cool. Imagine like they take your Falcon, right, and you bounce it. This is, I guess, either Falcon, like Ambush or like Ready Falcon. You bounce it to your hand, play it for free. If it comes in Ready or Ambush, so like that's awesome.
Change your heart as well, even. Cool. You can
so like there's reasons for that. Like I was considering siding it just because like yes it is sometimes good just to play, but like it also has some crazy blowout against like any steel cards or like capture. Even you can just bounce their capture, take off, get your unit back. It's pretty cool.
Very interesting. So yeah, any one card that you wish you might have put in that you didn't before we
like
finish
it's not
off
very
here?
exciting, but I actually do wish I played more like Crafty Smuggler, just because the 2/2 shielded is one of the better things to have in the mirror, just because it'll eventually trade up, it sticks around, it's difficult to interact with. So like I don't know, I'll probably just play like 1 or 2 of it though. I don't think you need tons and tons of Crafty.
You think you ditch out Ezra for that?
No, I think Ezra's still fine. If I was ditching Ezra, I would play Rogue Operative because Rogue Op is a good ass card.
Yeah,
it's huge.
I guess. So what would you what would you dump out?
I mean, the cards that were not good were Jetpack. That card should not have been in my deck. Gamma Guards is like probably a 2 of, even though that card's really good. Change of Heart in the main is like probably unnecessary. The third Han is also like not the most important thing to play, but like it wins you games, so I would maybe side it. Like these are all the considerations to just adjusting ratios here. But there are like other cards I probably want to play before I play weird cards. Like I do kind of want to fit the other Lackeys. I do kind of want to put the other Spark back in the
Lackeys is really strong right now with the amount of
Lackeys crazy.
Yeah,
it's like another like sneaky card that like whenever that thing hits and lives, it's so good. But it's pretty powerful. Fringe. I don't know if it needs to be in the main, but that card should absolutely be in the list somewhere. Card's great.
All right, Troy. Well, thank you very much for your insight. Like I said, guys, a million times, you can go watch his video in the pinned comments to get more details on this deck. Thank you very much for doing the video with me. I really
My
appreciate it. Like I say, I'm a massive fan of this deck, and your insights
Yes.
is
This deck
great.
is
Is great for me. So it's I'm going to use this and terrorize my locals some more.
sweet. Do it to them.
So yeah, do you have any quick shout outs before we get out of here?
Of course. I mean, always got to shout out Andrew Evans. He's the one that put me up
Legend.
in Indianapolis. Showed me around. Battle Spirits legend. Better than 99.9% of the field.
You'll get on the channel one day, Andrew. I promise.
We'll see about that. I got to gatekeep him. Andrew's the go. I love that guy. And then, of course, my testing group, Dylan Sumner, Machi, and Nav. They were huge in making this deck. And the three of us are going to be attempting to bring a lot of competitive Star Wars content on our channel. We have a lot to say about metagame and ratios and technical play and math and all of those sort of like intricate things. It's what we enjoy doing. And this game is like a great vessel for that because there's so many decisions to make. It really rewards you when you put the time in. So
sounds like
awesome.
There's a collab in our future for sure.
Absolutely. Would love to.
But yeah, no, thanks again for coming along, and congratulations on your great result. First place on the Friday, and was it third on the Saturday? Or
no, it was Thursday, Friday. So first Thursday and Friday, and then fourth Friday. Yes.
Insane results. And yeah, I look forward to seeing more from you in the future. And like I said, you guys need to get over here to Europe, Andrew included.
Of course.
So
we'll see it. Hey, you guys need to host big tournaments for us. We'll come.
We will.
Relieve you of your prizing. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, I mean you can try.
We'll try. We'll do our best.
But yeah, thank you so much again, Troy. And yeah, we hope to have you again soon. See you next time, guys.
Thank you so much.